What's going on, y'all? Attorney Tom here with Spin, where I'm going to be posting a video every single day. A few days ago, we did a fictional lawyer tier list, and somebody was very passionate about my ranking of Perry Mason. So they sent me the entire Perry Mason collection to my office, all seasons 1 through 9. The biggest problem with this is I do not own any DVD players, but we are going to react to the very first episode of Perry Mason today, Season 1, Episode 1. So we have Perry Mason. Thank you to whoever sent me this. It's actually really cool, and, I'm sure I can find access to a DVD player somewhere. I have my Knowledge Hammer, which is also something somebody sent to my office without me asking. Don't do that. Please, don't send things to my office. I appreciate it. It's great. Let's get started. Attorney Tom. The episode is called The Case of the Restless Redhead, and it focuses on Evelyn Bagby, the down-on-her-luck red-headed waitress. Why is it important that she's redheaded? It's not. It's brought up 10 times in this episode, but it's not material at all. Also, this is a black and white show, so I don't even know if she's actually redheaded. Why is Evelyn down on her luck? Well, she recently just got acquitted of jewelry theft. They thought she stole a whole bunch of jewelry, so everyone in town thinks she's a thief. And then, to make things worse, when she comes home from her work as a red-headed waitress, she finds a gun. She finds a gun in her cigarette box. She has no idea how it got there. So she picks up the phone and she calls Perry Mason late at night. And what's insane about this is the first time that Perry and Evelyn are talking. So Perry is a completely different lawyer than the lawyer she used to get herself acquitted from the jewelry charge. So you'd think that she would just call that lawyer, but no, she calls Perry Mason in the middle of the night. Perry Mason is wearing a full suit at his home, smoking a cigarette inside, and he takes the call. Perry then tells her to take the gun and go to a hotel for the night. But little did Evelyn know that's exactly what the crazy guy in the pillowcase wanted her to do. So after this, they get into a very reasonable speed chase. They are going the speed limit. And during this altercation, Evelyn fires the gun at the masked man during this pursuit. We don't see the car crash, but the gun is fired, and Evelyn ends up going to Perry's house instead of the hotel. So then at 3 a.m, Perry casually drives to the scene of the crime and just talks to the police, and they give him all of the evidence that he wants to know. He even fakes that he needs a light so he can go and talk to the police about this pillowcase in which the driver was wearing. And they find out that the pillowcase does not have a bullet hole in it, yet they find the crash site, the car, and the person who is dead does have a bullet hole through their head. The very next day, Perry Mason runs a background check on the gun. And what he finds out is the person who bought the gun, when they bought the gun, they bought 2 guns that were identical. So he goes and he talks to the person who purchased the gun. But before he does that, the cops try to go and talk to Perry's client, Miss Evelyn, and Perry kind of just lets them talk to her, which would not happen ever by a criminal defense lawyer. Remember, it's the government's job to prove you're guilty. You don't need to prove your innocence. You don't need to help the government make the case against you. But Perry just kind of lets Evelyn talk to the cops. Okay. So while Perry is on his way to talk to the rich dude who owns the gun, he gets another report that says that the rich dude who bought the gun's fiancé was married to the person who died in the car. So Perry calls an audible and he goes and talks to the fiancé. And we learn that it was her jewelry that Evelyn was charged with stealing. And she's generally very uncooperative. And now I want to point out, this is all happening the very next day after the murder. I mean, Perry is wasting no time and is somehow able to get in contact with everybody, and everybody's willing to talk to him, and it's pretty incredible. It's giving Phoenix Wright vibes. So then Perry detours even further, and then he goes to the location of the alleged robbery, and he goes and talks to the motel owners, and he asks for the guest list for the night of the jewelry robbery. And the guy who was killed in the car was not on the guest list. So Perry thinks that he was there and was involved in this, but everybody is denying everything. So now Perry is finally outside of the rich guy's house, and before he goes in, he marks the revolver that he has that Miss Evelyn shot, and he uses a fingernail file to mark it. This is almost certainly tampering with evidence. Perry knows that this is relevant to the information, to this case, that the police are going to want this, and, he doesn't care. Okay. When Perry is talking to the rich dude, he learns that the rich dude's fiance was formerly married to the person who died in the car. Now, the dude who died in the car was giving them a hard time, stating that the divorce wasn't final because he was improperly served. So the rich dude paid off the dude in the car, gave him $10,000 to just accept that the divorce was final. Now, back then, divorce and this kind of stuff was a very big scandal. So that's all the dude cared about. He was just worried about protecting his fiancée, allegedly. And then Perry shows the rich guy the gun. Perry asks the rich guy where the whereabouts of the other gun is. Remember, the rich guy bought 2 identical guns. The rich guy says he doesn't know, but he'll go check. So he takes the gun that Perry gave him and comes back with a different gun, the one that is unmarked, but tells Perry that he doesn't know where the other one went, and it must have been stolen out of his car. And also something that I want to point out is gun safety really isn't a thing in this show. They point the guns at everybody. I mean, in the very first scene of the show, Perry tells Evelyn to look down the barrel of the gun. It is pretty impressive how dangerous they're being. Then immediately after leaving the rich guy's house, Perry goes to the scene of the crime and starts firing the new gun into the field of evidence. He's just shooting the gun, which is absolutely inappropriate. He is definitely tampering with evidence. It's actually insane. Okay, and so the very next day, we have the preliminary hearing. Mind you, this is 36 hours after the shooting happened, and it appears this courtroom is packed. Every single relevant party is here for the preliminary hearing, which would just not happen in real life. What a preliminary hearing is in real life is usually just the prosecution presenting their evidence to a judge or a grand jury to determine whether or not there's enough evidence to even indict the defendant. So here, Miss Evelyn, the redheaded waitress, she is arrested, but this is really just a determination on whether or not the case can even move forward. This is not to prove guilt or innocence, but this show makes it a full trial, and also it's happening so soon after the alleged crime. And again, it would take much longer in real life. So basically, Perry's motive in this whole thing is to establish that there were 2 separate guns. But nobody else knows this. Nobody else knows that the gun that is being shown in the trial is the gun that got switched because Perry did that. And also, they just start pointing this gun everywhere at everyone in the court as well. Where all that's getting at is Perry then shows a photograph of the crime scene to the judge, and he points out that there are additional bullet holes in the tree and in the fence post because that Perry shot the ones in the tree and the fence post, and that causes everybody to take a break and go and drive to the crime scene. Fun little side story about a judge going to the scene of a crime. Even though this was a civil case, so it has nothing to do with the crime, in Houston, there was a famous story in the courthouse where a contractor was being sued by a homeowner for a faulty shower renovation, and they let the judge decide the case, so there was no jury involved. And the way the judge decided the case is he agreed the parties let him go to the homeowner's house and take a shower, and based on his experience in the shower, that's how he would make a ruling. And I think he ruled for the homeowners, so I don't think he had a very nice shower. All that to say, after they get back from visiting the courtroom, Perry calls the rich dude up to the stand, and he gets the rich guy to confess that he swapped the guns, and they bring both guns to the court, and here's Perry pointing both of the guns directly at the rich dude's face. And actually, what's important about the rich dude's statements is we learn that the reason why he switched the guns is because they thought that the fiance's gun was stolen in the bag of jewelry that was the genesis of the first case against the redhead waitress, Evelyn. Oh yeah, and also the his fiance's redheaded. He's got a thing for redheads. Not relevant at all to the story. So then Perry calls Louis Bold, who is the motel owner of the place where the jewelry theft happened, to the stand, and he denies everything. Next, Perry calls the owner of the apartment complex where Evelyn lives, his client. And Perry asks, does she recognize anybody else in the courtroom? And she points to the motel owner, Louis, and says that he had been buying a room there, but when he was buying a room there, he was only there briefly, and it was only to monitor Miss Evelyn. So then they call Louis back, and he just admits to everything. And putting the pieces together to this is actually insane, and Dirk and I had to decipher this. The guy who died, the former husband of the actress, got the $10,000 from the rich guy. He then turned around and promised the motel owner money if he would help him make trouble for Miss Evelyn and discredit her, because she was going to go to the public about this whole money exchanging deal. That happens. They set her up for jewelry theft, but then the dude who got paid the $10,000, the guy who died, never paid the hotel owner. So then the hotel owner got upset and killed him and put him in the trunk of the car, planted the gun in Miss Evelyn's room, and then purposely menaced her with this chase just so she would shoot at him, making a gambit that she would miss so then he could frame this whole thing on her. And if that wasn't confusing enough, listen to the reason why he did it.
He didn't give me a nickel.
So, what did you do?
I figured it out. If I killed him, I could get the money. I could get the money and get away from her. I wanted to get her off my back for 25 years.
His whole motive was to get the $10,000 just so he could get away from his wife. So he confesses to the murder in the preliminary hearing 36 hours after the shooting. Miss Evelyn is free, obviously falling in love with Perry Mason. Perry, can't date your clients, Perry. Can't date your clients. And that's pretty much the episode. But it was honestly very entertaining. I really enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. And like and subscribe. Spamuary.